Former government official Christopher Mellon tweeted out a private text message between himself and another government official who claims that we have recovered UFO from 1950s UFO crash in Kingman, Arizona, and much more in this message. Let's dive in, y'all. If you're new to the channel and you like content like this, please hit that subscribe button. I put out a new video every day, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I do not miss a day. And please hit that like button, vetters. That really helps out the videos. So thank y'all so much for the support there. And of course, comment down below. What do you think of this bombshell private message? And why did Christopher Mellon tweet this out? Is it classified, not classified? Is he allowed to? Let's find out. All right, so if you're not familiar with who Christopher Mellon is, right here. Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, former Minority Staff Director, Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. He famously has worked with Lou Elizondo and famously helped get released the UFO videos that you've seen all over the place, the Go Fast, the Gimbal, all of that, right? This is the guy. So when he tweets something out, we listen. And what did he tweet out? We got a lot to cover here. Okay, we're going to be going over this tweet. I mean, reading it out, but it comes from an article he wrote on Substack. We're also going to be going over that article, and we're going to be taking a look at details from this Kingman crash. What is this all about? And something else that I noticed from the message that I haven't seen anyone catch on to. So I'm going to discuss that at the end of this and show you a video that I think relates to it. And y'all can tell me what you think if I'm right or wrong. All right, y'all. Here is the tweet in question. Okay, here's the message, right? So what we're going to do is read this and then go to the Substack message. All right, so again, this is between him and a government official, right? Circa 2020. Christopher Mellon is in blue, and the other government official, name redacted, okay, is in light gray, I guess we'll call it. So it says, and I, so blank and I, someone redacted, right? And I are making huge progress getting into the crash retrieval program. He plans to meet with you at some point. The blank, redacted, would be slack-jawed if they found out what we now know. Christopher Mellon, messages something there. It's redacted. And then here we go. Right now, we haven't gone that far back. We're dealing with the recovered UAP that landed in Kingman, Arizona in the 50s. We're vacuuming up info as redacted gets read in. We now know the management structure and security control systems and ownership of the crash retrieval. We also know who recovers landed or crashed UAPs under what authorities. We also know that a still highly classified memo by a secretary of the United States Air Force in the 1950s is still in effect to maintain the cover on UAPs. Then, and another one down below it, 1 minute later, okay, we also know the SES-2, who's the Air Force gatekeeper, right? That's interesting. There's a lot to unpack here, right? We got recovered UAP from Kingman, Arizona, 1950s. Again, I'm going to show you all a video about that so we can learn more about that particular. It doesn't say crash. It does say landed. We know the management structure and security control systems and ownership of the crash retrieval. Interesting. So how it works, I mean, that's everything, right? They basically know everything about this crash retrieval program. Okay. We also know who recovers landed or crashed UAPs under what authorities. Okay. Is that American or foreign as well? Like, everybody and everything that's happening and private aerospace? Under what authorities? That's interesting. So they have authorities to do it. Like there's a law in place to allow them to do it. Are there some secret laws hidden that we could find? Like fucking, we need Nicolas Cage, man, in this moment, to go take care of this. What was that movie with the Declaration of Independence and all that? Like, right? Are there some secret laws he could find? Like, I'm just saying, are there some under what authorities? Under authorities that exist and they sort of, it's not necessarily directly for UAP, but they're able to fall under that authority, if that makes sense? Or is it specifically for that, but hidden somewhere? If it's hidden, it can be found, right? Anything hidden can be found, right? So I don't know. That's interesting. And they also say, we also know that a still highly classified memo by a Secretary of the United States Air Force in the 1950s is still in effect to maintain the cover on UAPs. So they're saying sometime in the 1950s, maybe because of the Kingman, Arizona crash, they found a way to maintain the cover on UAPs, right? A memo that details that, I guess. How can the memo is still in effect? What does that mean? It's just a memo. Does a memo have some sort of authoritative power? Is that what they mean? Because what does that mean, that the memo is still in effect? Orders were given? Is that what's on the memo? Again, I don't know what that means. Memos, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into that. And then they know who the Air Force gatekeeper is. I believe this is SCS-2. I saw people on Twitter trying to find out if they know who that is. I guess it's some sort of classification, right? Okay, so there's more to this, right? So here's the original that got cleared, right, for open publication March 1st, 2024, right here. You can see it. So Chris Mellon submitted it to DOPSR to get it released, right? So look, why did he even tweet this out, right? Why would he just randomly tweet this out? Well, if you remember, well, maybe you might not, but I did a video not too long ago. Let me bring it up here. I interviewed John Greenwald Jr., the Black Vault, and he had done a FOIA request back in November, and what he got back was stuff about Dave Grusch and Sean Kirkpatrick and whether or not they were going to have an interview, right? It was going back and forth, and John Greenwald Jr. came on. We spoke about it. If you notice up here, it says Chris Mellon, because as part of this FOIA release, signal messages that Sean Kirkpatrick had with Christopher Mellon, he screenshotted and included that as part of, the documents, right? So in response to this is what Chris Mellon, why he tweeted this out, okay? Because he basically, again, let's just jump to it here. And again, links in the description if you're going to go check out this interview with John Greenwald Jr., learn more about it. I got the exclusive with him right after that happened. And we spoke about it. You can see here for like an hour. Okay, so we go into details, how he got the document, this, that, and the other. We go over everything. It's a phenomenal interview. John's a great guy, and I really enjoyed it. So again, links in the description to everything I've shown you. All right, let's jump to this. This is Christopher Mellon's article that he wrote that is, okay, basically where these, look, right, where this is coming from, right? So look, at first I was looking for certain quotes in this to show y'all, and I thought, you know what? It's all too important. There's a lot of context here, and I don't want to miss that. So I think Christopher Mellon is owed that for sure on this. All right. So let me read. Let me get a sip of coffee. And again, after I read this, I'm going to show y'all a video of the Kingman, Arizona crash. All right. Recently, as a result of a FOIA request, the Department of Defense released some signal exchanges I had with Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, former director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, otherwise known as AARO. All right, so that's what I just showed you with John Greenwald and all that, right? That's the same documents. The release surprised but did not offend me, as I'm a strong supporter of government transparency. However, it also reminded me of another signal message that the public might find of interest that is also pertinent to the alleged recovery of off-world technology. Out of respect for the author's confidentiality, I've been sitting on this message for a number of years. I've also redacted portions of the document to protect the identity of the author. However, I recently obtained the author's written permission to release it. It has also now been approved for public release by the Defense Office of Pre-Publication and Security Review, otherwise known as DOPSR. My purpose in releasing this document, in the wake of the government's blanket denials regarding the possession of off-world technology, is simply to help others understand why I and some others consider these allegations worthy of investigation. I can totally understand that, right? If you have access to certain things, your motivation is going to be different than someone who doesn't, right? And you may not be able to explain that to people. There's always a lot of context, right? So I get it. People just see the tip of the iceberg. I'm probably guilty of it myself. We all are. So I get it. They just think that this is worthy of investigation, not necessarily that it's true, but that there's at least something going on that's worthy of investigation. And that I can agree with. Right? So we read this, right? We went over that. As you can see, so there's a little bit more about this guy. As you can see, this senior government official claimed they were being granted access to an alleged U.S. alien technology recovery and exploitation program. I mean, well, they did. That was not in the message. Alleged U.S. alien technology recovery and exploitation program, right? I won't comment on the organization they worked for, but I can confirm the individual had plausible access and was high-ranking, considerably more so than whistleblower Dave Grusch. Now, that is fascinating, right? High-ranking, considerably more so than whistleblower David Grusch. As you can see, this individual claimed to be gaining deep insights into the program and even provided the name of the alleged Air Force gatekeeper for this alleged secret realm. Wow, okay. I've shared an unredacted copy of the message, of this message, with some staff and members of the various congressional oversight committees. To the best of my knowledge, none have elected to contact the alleged United States Air Force gatekeeper to check the veracity of this claim. Now, why? Why not? Why are we not doing that? This is what frustrates people, right? It's like, we got time to be doing all kinds of other stuff. Why are we not checking? I mean, just go check it and then say it's BS. You can't even make a phone call? I mean, come on. I got spam calls every day. Why don't we get spam people on this? That's what we need. We need the spammers on this. Dude, that's what they need to be doing. Can you imagine if the spammers get into the UFO? I mean, they'd just be, hitting up. You know what I'm saying? Next thing you know, we've spammed and scammed the gatekeepers, right? We got them. I'm just saying, those guys are voracious and ferocious. I don't know, it's voracious. Yeah. I don't know if that's the right word, but anyway, right? I don't know, just throwing ideas, but I just find that interesting. None have elected to contact, to the best of his knowledge, right? None have elected to contact the alleged gatekeeper. I just don't understand that. Aware of the government's categorical denials of anything related to extraterrestrial life, I submitted a copy of this brief exchange to the Defense Office of Pre-Publication and Security Review, DOPSR. DOPSR confirmed the text is unclassified and approved it for public release. However, I also recognize that those making the determination that the document is unclassified would not likely be cleared for such an acutely sensitive program if it did exist. Furthermore, the government could hardly deny approval to release this information without, to some degree, confirming its sensitivity and legitimacy. So, although I'm relieved to have confirmation that the document is unclassified, I also recognize the truth could be more complicated. I think most people receiving information of this kind from a senior government official would naturally take the issue seriously, while still holding reservations about such a wild and sensational claim. See, even he calls it a wild and sensational claim. Why can't we call it that? Right? I get called not trustworthy on Twitter for holding reservations about wild and sensational claims, right? Anyway, the whole classify, right? If you submit something to DOPSR for review, if they took it out because it's classified, then they're therefore admitting it's true, right? So it's like they let it go. That's why they let people talk about it. Because if they don't let them talk about it, then you're admitting it's true and it's classified, right? I don't know. I find that interesting. I mean, is that really like Dopser? Is that easily manipulated? Like we just found the hole in Dopser is just, that's all you got to do. I mean, what if somebody was writing a book about an advanced airplane, right? And they knew about it. And that's the whole book, right? Amazing Airplane, right? That's the name of the book. And they submit it. And because they worked on the plane secretly, they know all the secrets. So they just put it all in the book. And then you don't think they're going to get in trouble for that? You know what I'm saying? I just think they'd be like, not only would they take it out, they'd be like, what are you doing? So I don't know if that's really, I don't know, man. I don't know. That's a complicated one. I'm curious to read the comments on that, what people think. Leave your comment down below. What you think about that, right? That whole scenario. Because the Dopser thing keeps coming up, right? People keep submitting everybody in the UFO community. It's this whole new level of disclosure where it filters through the government back to us. Right? And before it wasn't like that. Before 2017, we never heard of any of this. Till the Lou Elizondos of the world and more, right? I'm sure it was happening before. I'm just saying, a lot now. Everybody's doing that. All the whistleblowers, everybody's going through this process of Dopser, So I don't know. Anyway, let's continue. It is important to stress that regardless of the alleged technology recovery issue, you know what? Let me do this. Should have been doing this the whole time. The UAP topic, you know what? That's not going to happen. I was going to try to highlight, but it brings anyway. The UAP topic is one that requires serious continued congressional and executive branch attention. In just the last few years alone, over 1,000 military UAP reports have been recorded. Wow. That's crazy, right? And that's just what's been recorded. Recorded how? Like, do they mean on camera? Or do they mean just reported and recorded, if that makes sense, right? On paper. I don't know. Okay, UAP reports. Okay, what am I saying, Patrick, you idiot? They're telling you right here. Have been recorded. Just on record, I guess, is what he's saying. Okay, I thought there was more there. Anyway, I'm an idiot. This is in addition to a wider pattern of mysterious and disruptive drone overflights over U.S. bases and warships. Fighter aircraft from Langley Air Force Base recently had to be relocated after weeks of drone overflights at Langley that the Air Force seemed impotent to address. I did a video on that. I'll put a link in the description as well. The Air Force still does not know who was operating those craft or where they came from. And it's not just Langley. There have been many similar unsolved cases elsewhere in recent years. These include incidents at Anderson Air Force Base's sensitive facilities on Guam, a large region of the United States containing U.S. ICBM missile silos. Navy vessels off both the east and west coast have been extensively surveilled. United States Air Force training ranges in Arizona have been violated and more. If we didn't have a culture of trying to shame and humiliate military personnel who see and report unusual things, the military would undoubtedly have many other credible reports to evaluate. I can agree with that, honestly. With such extraordinary demonstrated vulnerabilities, far more serious than a mere Chinese balloon, there is an urgent need for our government to aggressively investigate incursions of restricted military airspace, regardless of the truth of any allegations about recovered off-world technology, right? How many times is that used in this article? Off-world technology, y'all. All right. This might be the most important part of the message here. I shared the message below with some trepidation. I worry about the privacy of the author and the privacy of the United States Air Force individual whose name I've redacted. I worry, too, that some will mistakenly assume this is a smoking gun document, and all we have to do now is get the author to step forward. However, it is important to note that this individual now claims that although they became aware of the program, they were ultimately denied access. The author of the message still believes there are recovered materials, but they admit they have not seen or touched a recovered craft. So, unfortunately, this individual would not be able to put this issue to rest, even if they were willing to come forward, which they are not. I wanted to share this with the public simply to help others better understand the kind of information that has caused some of us to take the allegations of recovered off-world materials seriously. What would anyone think who received a message like this? Furthermore, this is only one of a number of sources, 4 of whom I successfully introduced to AARO. However, this individual and another very compelling witness still refuse to meet with AARO because they do not trust the process. They might, however, be willing to speak with a small group of members of Congress behind closed doors. I will continue to explore that possibility. So, I don't know, y'all. That's kind of the smoking gun of this article is, is that they never got access. They've never actually touched a craft or seen one, right? But they ultimately were denied access, so they became aware of the program. But is that this in the same sense that supposedly, some of us in the UFO community are aware of the program? Like a lot of people watching this are going to be commenting, right? They're aware of the program. Does that mean? And then I asked, okay, I'm formally asking to be in the program. Watch. I mean, I'm not even going to get a denial. So were they ultimately denied access in the sense that they couldn't get in contact with anybody to get in, or someone told them, no, you're denied. You submitted your resume. George, we spoke to you. Unfortunately, not gonna work here. Right. Right. I'm just saying, what does that mean? Denied access, ultimately denied access. What does that mean? Right. But this part's important. It is important to note that this individual now claims. So they were sort of telling Chris Mellon for a while something, and then, right, it didn't happen, right? Not the story changed, but it gets updated, but it's kind of a very disappointing update, right? The smoking gun, right? So it sounds nice, everything in that message that he sent, but ultimately he doesn't know anything, right? So, but I understand Chris's message about just wanting to help better people, understand and, take these allegations of recovered off-world materials seriously. Like, I get that, honestly. I get the crux of his message, and I support it, if I'm being honest. I do. We need to investigate. We should look into it. I don't see any problem allocating resources and government funds to do that. Now, how much? That's okay. That's an argument that can be made. So I don't know. We'll see, right? It sounds like they're going to still continue to try to get some of these people to come forward in more ways than one. If there's many avenues for some of these people to come forward, maybe that would help instead of just AARO. Like, that's it. You got to go to AARO. Okay, maybe if there's this, and this, right? There's many different ways, right? I don't see that as being a problem. People trust different processes. But, what other topic or whatever we want to call it, is there like a line of people waiting to come forward and blow the whistle on? I can't name anything else. There's not even a line of political whistleblowers ready to come forward that people are always talking about in political circles, right? So I don't know. It's just very interesting. There's all these people waiting. I don't know. But again, happy. I totally support his message and happy that he wrote it. Anyway, let's get to this Kingman, Arizona crash video. I found this quite fascinating. Again, that's what's mentioned in the message, right? They have a recovered UAP supposedly from this guy who has not seen it, was denied access ultimately. But, let's take a look at what he means by Kingman, right?
Because of similar pressures in his own work, a friend of Ray's had kept quiet for 27 years with an amazing story. Ray tried to convince the friend to tell his story on In Search Of.
I know it's been several days now, and I've been waiting for you to call me on this, but have you come to any conclusions?
The man finally agreed, for the first time, to talk, but only under strict conditions.
I can assure you that Your name will not be used.
They made up a name, Fritz, to protect the witness's true identity.
And I think the best place to do it probably would be my planetarium, away from the kids and the telephone and things like that.
Waiting for his friend to arrive, Ray nervously fiddled with his telescopes. He remembered his extensive investigations into the man's reliability as a witness.
In the case of Fritz, I started in 1973, went all the way back to the various companies he worked for, right back to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, talked to people he worked with, and they all gave him a very clean bill of health, a reputable man, honest man, not the type that would fabricate a hoax, and a very efficient engineer, manager.
As the man arrived, Ray recalled the years his friend had wavered about breaking an oath of secrecy. He recalled their long arguments about a greater public good. Would the years of patient persuasion at last pay off?
As I understand it, Fritz, you were working for the United States Air Force.
The story began late one night in 1953 at Frenchman's Flat, Nevada. The man had been working as a consultant on blast effects of atom bombs when he was suddenly ordered to report for a new mission.
What happened after that? We were put on a bus, which the windows were all completely covered with curtains and, in some cases, black paper taped to the windows. And we're driven for 3 or 4 hours, and we're not sure just where we were going. Several of us tried to guess where we might have been. We, at that time, came to the conclusion it was in the area of Kingman, Arizona.
Kingman, Arizona, he said.
After getting off the bus, as recreated here, the scientists were taken to an even more remote location. They had no idea exactly where they were or what they were about to see.
We were told that we had been selected for various technical specialties. And I was told that I was to ask any questions that had to do with dynamic loads and nothing more, and I wouldn't be getting any answers to any other questions. It looked like 2 saucers, I would call it, one on top of the other, inverted, probably 25 to 30 feet in diameter. In terms of something known, what kind of metal would it look like? Well, it would look like a brushed aluminum. I'm sure it probably wasn't that. I say that because I noticed no scratch marks. And anything that would penetrate into the sand 20 inches that way would certainly have some scratch marks. No signs of buckling, fracture, or anything? Not that I could see. I accepted it was probably some United States government vehicle, a highly classified vehicle. In fact, we were told that that's what it was. Interestingly enough, one of the questions I needed to know was what the mass of the vehicle was. Now, I could tell a lot of things from the penetration into the desert sand and so forth, but I needed to know the mass. And they told me that they weren't going to let me know that. They perhaps didn't even know themselves. There was also a tent, which I didn't get to look into, but one fellow whom I did happen to talk with briefly until they told us to stop talking, said that he had seen 2 bodies inside this tent, 2 alien-looking bodies. It was brown, leathery skin, had a silver, like a cap on, without a bill. Like a skull cap? Yes, like a skull cap. I realized what this really started to mean, but I also at the same time realized probably why the government was keeping it classified. There are a lot of things that could be changed by our culture or religions. There are a lot of things that could be affected by the release of information like that at that particular time.
So there you go. Very interesting. Right? Real quick, I do have one more video to show y'all something I found in those messages, right? But real quick, how about that guy in the video who was like, oh my God, Jim, is that a UFO? Oh my God. Like, that guy was hilarious, the acting. Honestly, that dramatic reenact, it wasn't bad. It's pretty good production value. They had the UFO and everything. I mean, I wasn't expecting that, to be honest with you. They went above and beyond, right? They had Willis Jeeps out there and uniforms and, spotlights. I mean, before they could do some sort of like cheesy CGI, they had to do things like that. So like practical, like I thought it was pretty good. Anyway, let's go back to this message. Let me show y'all something. So, again, for those of y'all who are still around, who stuck around this long, let's see this little treat here. Tell me what y'all think. Tell me what y'all see in one of Christopher Mellon's messages. Because if you notice, we only read this, right? The government official. But look at Christopher Mellon's message right here. Why is that still visible? 45 versus... Because look at this answer here, right? Clearly, he asked him something. Chris Mellon asked this guy. Right now, we haven't gone that far back. So, right? So he says, we're dealing with the recovered UAP that landed in Kingman, Arizona in the 50s. So he must have asked him years, something about years or time, right? So 1945, right? What was he saying? 45 versus like something more modern, right? Going back, we haven't gone that far back. We're still dealing with the 50s. So he's saying we haven't gone back to the 40s. I'm not 45. Well, let me just look up 1945 UFO crash. What does that bring up? Check this out. 1945 alien encounter before Roswell, right? The Trinity UFO crash, I think it's called. I don't know. Am I overthinking that? Right there, 45 versus something, right? Like other time. He must have asked him about time, because that's what that answer implies, right? We're dealing with the recovered UAP that landed in Kingsman in the 50s. I'm just saying. And he's saying we're dealing with the recovered UAP as if he's in the program, right? We know we're vacuuming, right? We're doing these things, gets read in. But turns out he wasn't even in the program. He was denied access. So what was this we stuff? What was that what was all this we talk? What was all that 1 in a million talk? The Dumb and Dumber fans out there. So I don't know. 45. What do y'all think? Let's take a look at this video, and we'll just end there. Y'all tell me if I'm onto something there. I don't know. Could be wrong. Something. Just talking. Just asking questions. Let's go.
So history has recorded the first big UFO sighting in the United States is 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico, very famously right outside Roswell. But actually, there was, in some sense, a bigger and more significant event sighting 2 years before, also in New Mexico, at exactly the moment the U.S. government was detonating the first atomic weapon, shortly thereafter used in Japan. And witnesses on the ground saw some kind of object shaped like an avocado, they said, crash land. It was inspected by a lot of locals. There were beings inside, they said, and it was carted away by the U.S. government. Now, people don't want to be called crazy, so no one said too much about it for quite some years, but people within the U.S. government believe it's true, and they believe it so strongly that now, as of this week, the Defense Department's annual spending bill will require, as per Congress, the Pentagon to go back and investigate what really happened. Nick Pope is a former UK Ministry of Defense official who's followed this subject very closely. He joins us to assess. Nick, thanks so much for coming on. So this is a story that most, I think, Americans are not even aware of, but clearly people within the U.S. government believe it's real, or they wouldn't have attached this to a spending bill, correct?
Correct.
Real quick, before Nick Pope answers, right? U.S. government officials looking into this, right? That's maybe why Chris Mellon is asking about it. That's why I bring up this crash, right? And I think that 45 in that message is what he's asking him about. But again, that guy, what does he really know at the end of the day? That other government official. But he is a high-ranking official, so just making up stuff.
Yes, this is being called the Roswell before Roswell. And you're right, people with some knowledge of these intelligence programs who've been briefing Congress about this made sure that this was put into the legislation. And it's one of many UFO provisions in the new defense bill. The DOD must provide Congress with a list of everything they've found out about this specific incident, but all other incidents and programs from January 1st, 1945 onwards, and anyone involved in these programs or with information about it will be released from their secrecy oaths and non-disclosure agreements, and they'll be able to testify to Congress about this.
So here we have the nuclear connection again. This was around the first detonation in human history of a nuclear device. Subsequent to that, you've had UFO sightings at nuclear missile bases, around nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, nuclear-powered submarines. There's clearly some I mean, I don't pretend to understand, but nuclear has some connection to these sightings, no?
That seems to be the case. And again, Congress is demanding answers on this. We had the latest report from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence last week. That highlighted the fact that there were several hundred more sightings being investigated, military sightings, than we'd heard of before. Talked about unusual flight characteristics and performance parameters of this. And yeah, we must get to the bottom of this UFO and nuclear connection.
Yeah. I mean, I would think, and it feels like we're getting closer. I hope. Nick Pope, thank you for your work on this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch...
No, don't do that. I don't know. Just saying. Just throwing that out there. I don't know. Y'all tell me, looking at that message, if that's what it implies. Again, I'm not saying it's... I don't know. Just saying. That's what it led me to believe. I think Christopher Mellon's asking him about dates of different crashes and stuff. So how far back maybe they're going, I don't know. Just find that interesting, that connection to that specific crash too. The Roswell before Roswell. Is that what Chris Mellon is asking about? Anyway, we'll see you guys on tomorrow's video. Got some great stuff lined up this week, y'all. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. Remember, every day's a gift. Peace.